Okay, so in this video, we are just trying to conclude our study on introduction to computers and ICT. So we're going to talk about what we're calling computer security. So what is computer security? So computer security basically is also known as cyber security, and of course we can define it to be just protection of computer systems and information from arm theft, and of course unauthorized access. Okay, so computer security may deal with hardware and of course software. In this case, I believe we are going to focus more on the security, on the software aspect of computer security. Okay, so we're going to talk about a few aligned things: vulnerability, threat, attack, security concepts, and also the security service. Okay, so we have what we call computer viruses. So understand what they are and the different types that are there. So a computer virus is an application program designed and written to destroy other programs. So we talked about programs already in our introduction video. So any application program that gets to destroy other programs or affect them is what we're calling a virus. Okay, so a virus, of course, is a small piece of software that piggybacks on real programs. The virus might attach itself to a program such as a spreadsheet program, and it has a chance to reproduce by attaching to other programs. So it's able to make copies of itself. It's able to attach to things like emails and whatnot. So the main point here is the virus basically gets to destroy other programs. And of course, we can also define it to be just a computer program when executed replicates itself by modifying other computer programs and inserting itself in its own code. Okay, so it gets to modify other computer programs and inserts its own code in the other programs to disturb them. That's what a computer virus does. So we have what we call email viruses. Email virus travels as an attachment to email messages, replicates itself by automatically mailing itself to dozens of people in the victim's email address book. So that's why sometimes we are taught to be very, very careful on how we open emails on our computers and our phones, especially if you are receiving emails from unknown. That's why we have what we call a spam folder. Don't necessarily get to open emails anyhow, especially if you're not so sure of the sender, because you may receive a virus on a computer. So we also have what we call Trojan horses. So a Trojan horse is simply, of course, a computer program. So a program claims to do one thing. It may claim to be a game, but instead does damage when you run it. So there are such programs as well. It pretends to be a normal software, pretending to do certain thing, pretending to be a spreadsheet or a Word application. So we call those Trojan horses. Okay, I think in my own language I would put it to be a chameleon, trying to pretend to be what you need at a particular time. Think of it in that way. So worms. A worm, on the other hand, is a small piece of software that uses computer networks and security holes to replicate itself. So worms scan the network for another machine that has a specific security hole. Of course, what is a security hole? Just to explain that. So a security hole basically is vulnerability or weakness in the system that may result from a system bug. So basically, that's what we are calling a security hole. So vulnerability and weakness in the system. That's what makes it possible for worms to be able to replicate themselves. Okay. So malicious software. How do you know if you have a virus? Lack of storage capability, decrease in the speed of programs, unexpected error messages, watching the system. So of course, malicious software is any software intentionally designed to cause disruption to a computer. It may be a server, a client, or a computer network, or leak private information and also gain unauthorized access to information or a system. So talking about auditing of a system, basically this is like getting to bring a program that was running to an expected end. So usually it comes as an error, system audit. So what it means is the computer could not continue due to hardware or software problems. So that usually caused by viruses or malicious software present on a computer. So I think that even attaches to unexpected error messages. And also you begin noticing your computer becoming slow and a lack of storage capability. I think I was emphasizing on that, where you don't have a lot of files on your computer. You know your computer is 500 GB, but suddenly space is not enough. So tips to avoid viruses and lessen their impact. So just like I said, delete emails from unknown or suspicious, untrustworthy, or unreliable sources, especially those with files attached to an email. So there are some emails, you receive an email and then they say there's a file attached to it. So if you're suspicious, you don't know, the source is unreliable, you are advised to delete such an email. Never open a file attached to an email unless you know what it is, even if it appears to come from a friend. Okay, so sometimes somebody may send you an email and then the message tells you your friend has not mentioned anything about a file being attached to that email, and then the email itself says there's something attached. So you make sure you're conscious about that. So download files from the internet only from legitimate and reputable sources. So most of us we are usually on sites where we are prone to viruses, downloading movies from these sites that are illegal. So that also makes you prone, especially being able to, I know people have got the tendency of downloading videos from YouTube. Usually all sites are prone to viruses, and make sure you're very careful if you're using your computer to access that, because they're able to get your information. They're able to actually get unauthorized access to your device or your accounts that you're using. So update your antivirus software at least every 2 weeks, as over 200 viruses are discovered each month. So you're advised to do that. So back up your files periodically to avoid loss. Okay, so because we are saying tips to avoid viruses and also lessen their impact. So when you're backing up your files, let's say to Google Drive, even when your files on your computer gets corrupt, you'll not be able to lose the files. So that lessens the impact. The system may crash, but at least you keep your files. Okay, vulnerability. So some state of a system of being open to attacks or injuries. So it's a weakness that is there in the system. So that state of being open or weak to attacks and injuries is what we call vulnerability. Example, in a house analog, open door is a vulnerability for thieves to enter. So even a computer system is also vulnerable in some ways. A threat, a statement of intention to injure, damage, or any other enemy action. A potential for violation of security. In case of a house, example, loss of money is a threat. So we know what a threat is. Somebody may be giving you a statement that is intention to harm you. So that is what we call a threat. Anything that is of a danger to you. So we have 4 kinds of threats that we're going to talk about. So we have interception, interruption, modification, fabrication. All these are going to be talked about with examples. Okay, so we have a diagram to just show what interception is. So unauthorized access to a data. So for example, illegal copying of program or data files. So yeah, making copies, illegal copying of a program or the data files without the permission. So that is basically interception. Okay, so we have a diagram to basically show what interception is. Interruption. Interruption, on the other hand, is a data of a system becomes lost, unavailable, or unusable. Examples include erasure of a program or data files, malicious destruction of a hardware device. So these are examples of interruptions. So you basically the viruses gets to erase the program of a file, or there is destruction of a hardware device. So that is an interruption in the normal operations of a computer. Modification. So modification, basically, this is, of course, the name says it, unauthorized change, tamper with the data. So here, you, for example, let's say you have results. For example, think of that worst case. You have results of students on a computer, and then because of a virus, somebody who is a computer genius and then wants to finds ways and means, sends an email to a lecturer with an attached virus that is capable of modifying or changing the data that you are dealing with the results. So that is modification. That's also a kind of a threat that are brought by the viruses to a system that is vulnerable. Fabrication, on the other hand, unauthorized insertion to an existing database. So you have a database, for example, and then you basically get to add extra data without permission. So that is also another threat of these viruses. So in summary, we've talked about fabrication, we've talked about modification, we've talked about interruption, and we've talked about interception as the kinds of threats that we have. Talking about an attack. So an assault on system security is an attack. A deliberate attempt to evade security services is also an attack. So we have passive attacks and active attacks. So what is a passive attack? So let's look at this demonstration that we have. We have a diagram to just demonstrate what passive attack means. So we have Bob trying to communicate to Iris on the other end. So via internet or other comms facility. Now here is another guy there. He reads the contents of a message from Bob to Iris without permission. So that is a passive attack. We'll understand the difference as we get to look at the active attacks. So he observes a pattern of messages from Bob to Iris. Active attacks, on the other hand, if you observe the diagram, the other guy, instead of Bob, he sends a message to Iris pretending to be Bob. So that's masquerading. And then on the other part, another example is captures messages from Bob to Iris, later replay message to Iris. So this is what we actually seeing here. So Bob sends a message, it goes to the guy, and then the guy sends a message to Iris. So it's pretending to be Bob. Okay. So an active attack is basically is affecting the message. On the passive attacks is basically just trying to is affecting privacy because it's just observing what the messages they are sharing. But in the active attacks is actually involved directly in affecting or altering the message being sent from one person to the other. And I believe that's the difference between active attacks and the passive attacks. So continuous demonstration, and then that modifies messages from Bob to Iris, and then that disrupts service provided by the server. So that is also another example of an active attack. So denial of service. So basically, this one has performed almost everything we talked about. We talked about interruption, talked about modification. So that is an active attack. Passive, we are trying to observe infringement of privacy and whatnot. Now why do people attack? Why attacking? So you can use mom to help you remember that. So method, people have got too much skills, knowledge and tools, so they end up attacking. Opportunity, others have got too much time and they've got so much access to these platforms that they feel they can just engage in attacking. And then others, their motive would be they want to be famous, they want money. That's why people attack. So method, opportunities, and motives. The key security concepts. So we use these to prevent weaknesses from being exploited. So confidentiality. So we only allow access to authorized users. Integrity. Modify only by authorized users. For example, patient information. You don't want to change that information. Let's say you have an hospital that basically depends on a computer system to keep track of the medications being given to the patients. In case where we have shifts in the nurses and the doctors, it is just the duty of a nurse or a doctor to check the system. So we want to make sure that only people who are authorized, they've got access to that. So that's integrity. So that there is no change. Because somebody may change and then they list the life of the patient. Yeah. So student grades. Confidentiality on the first part, just to give you an example, is want to make sure that only the authorized user, the owner, has got access to their results. Okay, for example, on Moodle. And then availability. Users want to check their accounts. So as much as we want to provide security, we want users to be able to check their accounts at any time. Relationship between confidentiality, integrity, availability. We've talked about all these. How to avoid security attacks. So this is demonstrating the abilities to both to actually among all these three: hardware, data, and software. So when you look at hardware, so there is interception, theft, there is interruption, denial of a service, and there is also modification, and there is also fabrication. So these are the things that can happen to hardware. So there may be denial of a service, there may be theft, there may be substitution, and then there may be modification to our hardware. Data, we can lose our data. There can be interception, there can be modification to our data, there can be fabrication. We said fabrication is insertion. Okay? And then interruption, we can have our software deleted. It can also be, there can be interception in the running of our software, there can be a change, and also fabrication. So viruses, worms, trojans. So interruption, this is for the software basically we sort of from saying. So a software can be deleted, there can be interception, modification, or it can be fabricated. And of course, for the hardware, this can happen to the servers, the server rooms, the laptops. Physical security is what basically can prevent all this. Data protection, the most important thing in majority of information systems, data is usually prone to a lot of attacks. So how do we get to protect? So we use the 3Ds of security to help us remember. So it's defense, deterrence, and detection. Defense, reducing risks and saving costs of incidents. So for example, you can install firewalls on your computer and antivirus and spam filters. These will reduce the risks and they'll save you the happenings of these incidents of the threats that your computer system is. So you're trying to avoid by defending. And then deterrence, punishing makes attackers think twice. So organization policies and procedures, and also government laws as well, should be able to punish the attackers, the hackers and the crackers. What is the government doing about it? So if any hacker or cracker is maybe discovered, there should be punishment that will reduce other people from doing it. Detection, need alert if security incident occurs. Audit logs, intrusion detection system, network traffic monitoring. So when this has happened, when there has been an attack by a virus, there is a virus on your computer, or there has been change to your data, there should be an alert given to the user or the owner of a computer system or an organization. So what will allow detection will allow the users and the owners to basically take action. How do we get to protect? Security service, which is the last part. Enhance security of data processing systems and information transfers of an organization, intended to counter security attacks using one or more security mechanisms. Often replicates functions normally associated with physical documents, have signatures, dates, and need protection from disclosure. So for physical documents, make sure there are signatures, the dates, and need protection from disclosure. Security services, authentication. I assure that communication entity is the one claimed. So it should be authenticity. Authenticate every document. Assure that communication entity is the one claimed. Access control, prevention of unauthorized use of a resource. Data confidentiality, protection of the data from unauthorized disclosure. Data integrity, assure that data received is as sent by an authorized entity. Non-repudiation, protection against denial by one of the parties in a communication. Resource accessible or usable. So this will allow us to provide security to our systems, data, hardware, and software, and especially data. Yeah, so we need to make sure there's confidentiality, there's integrity by making sure you confirm from the sender and all these. Okay. So as much as we want to provide security, the resources should be accessible and usable. Security mechanisms. Features designed to protect, prevent, or recover from a security attack. No single mechanism that will support all services required. So we basically don't need a single mechanism that will support all services. Just any security mechanism is okay. There may be some services lacking, but it should be able to do certain things. So specific security mechanisms, these are examples. Digital signatures, access controls, data integrity, authentication. Okay, so basically this marks the end of study under the introduction to ICTs and computers. I hope you've enjoyed our lessons, and if you have, make sure to give us a comment. If you want to make any donation of any amount, there is a link. We really appreciate, because that will encourage us even to work on the other videos. So if you also wish to sponsor, if you want us to mention you in the video, or just want us to make a video as soon as possible on any chapter, you can also get in touch by using the information in the description. Thank you.